Good afternoon. It's Monday again. Yeah, so it is Monday the 23rd, and we're going to talk today about the future of the high street, which is really interesting considering the news that's coming out at the moment about non-essential retail opening up here in the UK from the 2nd December. So yeah, I think there's obviously going to be a massive push again pre-Christmas for retail here in the UK. But as I said last week, and as we talked about before, what'd be great is in the comments bit is to just ping me a note, say hello, say where you're from, where you're working, and where in the world you are, because it'll be great to get some insights and thoughts from everybody. Non-UK focused as well on what the future of their shopping high street is looking like. So yeah, as always, this is a totally open and informal discussion, and really open to comments and engagement and all of those bits. So yeah, really sort of here to take part in the conversations. Just let me know any of your thoughts on what you think about the future of the high street, really, and any questions you have, ping them in the comments box. So yeah, so I kind of wanted to do this as I was really interested around what is going on with a lot of conversation at the moment around the sort of renaissance of the high street. I think there's a bit really around what is happening with our shopping habits based on COVID and that sort of situation, and I think this piece around how retailers engage locally and how they can do that is obviously we've changed massively in the last 9 months. I think we've undergone this huge sort of shift in how we're working, how we're consuming, how we're engaging, all those sort of things. Obviously we are so used to going to the office, going to a place of work, going somewhere and utilising those facilities, those stores, those coffee shops, those takeaways, all those pieces that you would go to the office and you'd walk out of your door at the office and go to that that piece really. So that whole, the local high street wasn't your local high street. It was a service that had been sort of built to facilitate your working place. And as we sort of moved to working from home and remote working and all those kind of things, that the local high street has taken on this huge significance really. I think the bit where everybody, no one, I work from home. No one wants to leave their, you know, you want to walk out of your door and go somewhere locally. You want to go and get a coffee. You want to take in the natural air and the green spaces. And yeah, my guys that I work with at Wild that always laugh at me because we were talking about it this morning, but when I need some time to think, they say they always know when I'm thinking because I'm on the phone and I'm out walking the dog, and that's my time to sort of get out, get some sort of thinking space, change of scene, recharge the batteries, get a coffee, and it's the difference to work in an office. And the local high street now has a huge part to play in that, and I think it's about retailers now shifting their model to engage with the local community. And you know, I'm a massive fan of Nike and obviously what they do, and their retail strategy is just so on point all the time that they are now opening the Nike Live concept, which is a sort of community focused hub store, which uses sort of DNA of the local consumer and local landmarks and local athletes to really curate a localized offer. So not it's that sort of the days of that clone town, I think we sort of call it, and sort of a cookie cutter approach is sort of changing as it's all about different communities and different people. So yeah, where I live is completely different probably to where some of you live, and how you your community is, and the demographic of your community. And retailers need to take that piece and that melting pot of those sort of all those ideas and diversity and values and all those kind of things, and really play that up. So we've been doing it. I think retailers have been doing it for a long time in various ways, about opening coffee shops in bookstores and like events and stuff in fashion stores. But now it's about taking the values of the community, those real thoughts and understandings of a community, and building that into the heart of everything the retailer does. So it's all of those kind of activity-based community ideas. So I love everything you do in terms of how like switched on with all of the retail stuff you do, and you've just put on there about the Rise concept, and it's that what Nike do in terms of bringing a localization, sort of kind of getting it bang on for their community, and then blowing it out of the water with their sort of house of innovation. It goes back to those things we've talked about sort of every other week, and about creating an experience. But what I suppose we want, and maybe less so me, more sort of millennials and those sort of Gen Zs, is to kind of create something that is so in tune with their lifestyle. I think it's that accelerated shift from what people want and what they see online, and it all needs to kind of merge into one experience. So whether you are just going to a local store to see some furniture, or I know IKEA started doing the kind of local stores, like a showroom environment, so it was less around a massive trip out to a massive store, and it's about that sort of move beyond the transactional. I think in terms of what a local store can do, and with a retailer, with a brand, it's you're engaging with those people. So and everyone's different, every demographic's different. The great thing about the local environment and the community is they're all different, they're so diverse, there's they're ranging in ages, and there's so much you can tap into that mindset of the community. The problem is, I think, and it'll go on to some of the other questions that I've had before this one, I think here, and what changes do high streets need to adopt? It's that piece where it needs to be less of a 20th century mindset, I think. Like high streets have been built, towns and high streets have been built on this need for a car. There's this whole sort of shift in that everything had to be focused on you get there in a car, and the sort of high streets of the future need to be focused on, and Melbourne are doing it in a way, in this whole sort of 20-minute neighbourhood, that everything's is living locally, it's on your doorstep, you can walk out your door, and it's this whole sort of intermersed part of it being around experiences and quality of life, and not that sort of blind consumerism that we're so used to, just going out and shopping. It's this sort of mixture of definitely the community. Communities at the heart of everything you do, that people are doing. And I'm just reading some comments here. Kevin's sort of comment around, and sorry, I haven't put any of these comments up today because I'm too busy chatting away, but Rafa have done it for ages. These their clubhouses, it's always been less around the purchasing. Totally, as Kevin's saying here, purchasing goods almost becomes secondary to the product. and creating a sort of community clubhouse. And that's Rafa's never looked. I've loved like Rafa stores. They've never looked like a shop. In fact, I think it's all about the community of those people and yeah, there's so much here. So it'd be about less of product on the shelf, and that kind of seamless connection between every part of a brand's DNA, really. So, and creating that one sort of environment. And whether obviously that the Nike's a fantastic example that it's doing different things on different levels and playing with that and playing with your brand fans, playing with your consumer, playing with demographic, playing with the locality and all those kind of things. And it's those sort of activity based community gathering places. So you're creating what I'd call a hub, and that's ultimately what high streets need to kind of come back to do, but in sort of a flexible way, so that whether and that goes on to some of the other questions I've got around landlords, really, and how can landlords encourage tenants to use their spaces, and that's all around these sort of flexible spaces, and I think the whole sort of thought process around these sort of community focused hubs for the high street is really, it's about encouraging multi-use of a space. So whether it's an art centre, a yoga studio 1 minute, a cooperative like of baking, or artists, or a sort of museum space, but it's about flexibility and driving out multi-use. So what you're doing is encouraging sort of this kind of constant footfall, that you're tapping into the needs of the local people. There's no point, I think, and ultimately the high street has had this, it's been in a flux really long before the pandemic, that it became I don't know, I suppose full of fast food and vape stores and betting shops and payday lenders, and that sounds really negative, but actually I think the high street feels quite negative. It's not somewhere you want to spend a lot of time, and it's about twisting that I read a stat that 72% of millennials would rather spend their money on an experience. So high streets have never really been focused on creating an experience, and that's where I think the future lies in the high street. And yeah, I think this is a great one. It's about creating an environment where your consumer can identify with. And the problem is, I think the high street is in an identity, sort of an identity crisis, really. That it's sort of lost. You pop there, you pop to the shops, you don't spend time there. There's a lack of seating, there's a lack of kind of inviting spaces. Obviously there's a huge bit, and totally out of what I even know, and I'm not an expert in town planning, but there's like a lack of toilets, as a dad of 2 kids, there's a lack of toilets, and it's not somewhere you go. You kind of that. I don't know if I should be talking about toilet trips on a LinkedIn Live about future retail, but I think it's so important that, as well as inviting physical retail spaces, about creating a fully inviting space, full stop. And obviously we talked about the shopping centre last week about being it's safe, it's clean, it's accessible. What the high street has got is it's got that outdoor bit. It can connect to beautiful outdoor spaces. It can connect to the air around us and the greenery, and you have to look at Las Ramblas in Barcelona. Like, how incredible is that as a street? And now I know we don't all have that space, and we don't. How beautiful is that as a high street, as something to aspire to be? It's full of art, culture, beautiful scenery. But all towns have something like that. There's normally a town square. I went to Bradford the other week for a project, and the town square was incredible. You know, the architecture was incredible, and just taking some time out to go and look around. You know, there's so much more that towns offer over just retail, and I think that's what the kind of future of the high street needs to tap into, and it's empowering the local communities a bit more to develop their high streets. You know, there's something in political challenges that a lot of people, that I think town planners and councillors need to do, because if local high streets are in local hands, maybe they're accountable, that community is accountable to those experiences. And yeah, I'm lucky. I live in a town, and it has a thing called like a dahlia in bloom, and there's people out there who look after all of the flower beds, and it's beautiful in how they look after it. But that's a local initiative, and I think it's definitely about empowering those local communities a bit more. And obviously from a retail point of view, it's really focusing on that seamless delivery between online, offline, and kind of your sort of brand deliverable experience stores, because obviously a local store can't do that. And then some thoughts really on how it's that sort of focus on that real mix between not that we talk that cloned sort of town piece is over, that whole piece where you go to every town and every shop is the same. Those stores are the sort of dying breed. You read about those in the news, that stores are closing. Edinburgh Woolen Mills now another one. We've had Oasis, we've had I don't know, week on week they're talking about, and these are sort of what I'd call clone. Nothing against clone stores at all, because they've been the rise of these sort of multinational brands that have delivered out. But the challenge with that is that there was no reason. Every week another reason, but it's about creating a reason to visit, and that's what the local store's also got to do. There's got to be a reason to go to your local store and your local high street, and I think it's that thing again that it needs to reflect to all our new values. We've all got new values. In the last 9 months, we've all gained huge amounts of new values. You know, we value our health, we value our wealth, we value our the sustainability piece. You know, all these things have become massively important to us over buying, like over commerciality, over those sort of kind of that cookie cutter approach. And we all want to breathe air, greener spaces, more wildlife, all those sort of things, and that's what you get in your local high street environment. And it's about changing that and focusing on that. And just reading through some of these, and Danny says, are there any thoughts on new large UK brand stores like M&S, Boots, etc., when maybe the environment is harder to adapt to new ways? And I think that is a tough one. You know, I think obviously we're seeing M&S kind of go for it. I love M&S, and I think there's so much M&S can do. It's just a challenge because their real estate is set in its ways. They've got big stores. They've got sort of probably in the wrong places. But, you know, I read that John Lewis had signed a 20-year lease in Sheffield because they were moving their strategy to where the people were. And obviously Sheffield is a vibrant, if anyone's been, and it's local to me, but like a vibrant hub of, it feels very community focused, very young, very urbanized, very creative. And I think it's about realigning the sort of retail strategy alongside the demographic. It's about creating these local, like Boots could do something, you know, with a localized store format. Like I've got Boots in 1, 2, 3 of my local sort of town. Like I've got 3 sort of local towns near me, and they've all got a Boots in, and they all serve the community in a way, I think, through the pharmacy piece. But they're all the same. So, but each town's different, and I think it's tapping into that demographic. Like they're all within 15 minutes of each other drive from me, but each town offers a different feel. So Boots could tap into that. There's obviously a different demographic in one town to the other. One's more of a touristy town, one's more of a younger town, one's more probably of a more sort of urbanized city or place. So it's about harnessing that the local DNA. I don't know. Maybe I'm just sort of chatting on about stuff, but it's the harnessing what I think is that local piece and driving that out in a more exciting and engaging way, because and I've talked about it a few weeks ago, but I was open stores globally for French Connection, and they all looked the same and they all had the same fixtures, and that was fantastic at that period of time, about driving brand awareness and all of that, and the whole piece around was a hugely strong brand image. But what I think people are buying into less, we've seen it. We've seen where people have shifted their shopping habits because they're not buying into that sort of consumer. They're not just buying stuff for the sake of it. And millennials and Gen Z, it's all around aligning to companies that support their values. So whether it's feeling more sustainable, more organic, more curated, it's ethical. You have to look at Montezumo's chocolate company, and they're going through big physical growth in stores because it's a sustainable, ethical brand that encourages you to go to the store. Obviously taste is a problem at the moment, but tasting the chocolate, but it's that whole feel. You have to look at Lush and the way they've done it, but it's about quality of those experiences that you're creating for your customer and your brand DNA, really. And I think less so of the cookie cutter piece. And I think that's where Marks and Spencer's, if we talk about Marks and Spencer's and Boots and places like that, it's about creating less of these same experiences and tapping into what is really happening in the local community and focusing. That goes back to that Nike store, that the product is curated for the local community. They put on events for the local community. They put on information about the store staff and things that happen in it, and it's to reflect the tastes of those people rather than just sort of forcing an entire collection or a range of product onto someone. So I think Marks and Spencer's could do that. I don't know how. It would be a massive challenge, but it'd be an incredible one to turn it, how you would curate a Marks and Spencer's store. It does my head in, because I go to Marks and Spencer, can never find anything I want, and then I look online and the stuff, there's always loads of stuff, and I think it's whether it's about trying to tap into the right demographic, and it's, as we can all buy everything online, it goes back to that thing about creating a reason to visit and engage in. So I think, and it's really interesting. It's about not only focusing and back to what can high streets do and retailers. Obviously, retailers' job is to retail, but what the high street needs to do is focus less on just offering retail as a solution to what the high street should be. And it's a mixture of everything. It's a mixture of property, it's a mixture of short-term rental spaces, it's a mixture of stuff that taps into the right demographic, you know. Whether it's a skate park, you know, Nike took on a pool in Dagenham for a long time ago, but it was a temp project. They turned an old swimming pool into a skate park. It's, you know, all of that. I think there's been a sort of detriment of youth in these sort of places. You know, people have wanted to encourage younger people to the high street because they're seen as a problem, but actually they're the future of retail in general. They're a future of you know, of what we need to do. So it's about adapting to that and harnessing their desires and their sort of values really to bring those spaces to life, but not forget another sort of different generation. So yeah, it's the fantastic part of it. It's a melting pot of so many different things, and the right high street. I was reading before I came on here about Stockton Tees is a project that's going on to try and regenerate the high street, and it's just this hugely created space where everybody can engage, different demographic, different backgrounds, different ages. You know, it's to create that strong sense of community, and yeah, and I've just it's that personal touch. You know, the difference between the high street and the shopping centre is a high street is a sort of it's a contained environment. It's like Disney. It's like a Disneyfied version of shopping. You know, we go to Disney because it serves up a sort of solution. It fixes that that piece, and you feel safe, and it does all those things. And the difference with the high street is, it's that human interaction and personal touch, and it goes back to all these things. Every week we sort of talk about it, but it's the personal interaction with the people who work there. You know, the people who own the stores or work in the stores. You know, that goes back to Nike and the sales associates or the team members, or all their information is in the store. You learn to engage with those people. They become part of your network, for example. You train with them, you engage with them. They give you information. They probably, like they in China, they WeChat with you. So you're building these sort of rapport with the brand, but through a personal connection with someone who you associate with, and all of those sort of things really. So it goes back. It's that emotional connection, physical connection, and that sort of selling is a byproduct as we move into the sort of new world of retail. Is that it all kind of sort of interlaps with this experience piece, that you're feeding your community as a brand, and as a retailer you feed your community, which thus in turn feeds the community wider, with those kind of ideas and values and you know, understanding of your brand. And it's just an ongoing part of the brand's DNA really. Is ultimately the role of the high street going forward is to serve the local community, and that's where I see some exciting parts for retail in general, is how retailers need to revise their strategy. And again, I think we've talked about it before, but it's about revising their strategy, that they have different strategies for different parts of their business, and trying to align all those at once. It's not easy, you know, it's not easy, but there's so many really intricate and exciting things that they all bring, and they're all equally as important as each other, but they all work together. So Nike's a fantastic example, and I've probably used them about 25 million times today, because they don't just have one business model. They don't have one store concept. They don't have one sort of underpinning brand concept that they roll out globally. It's about tapping into different markets at different times in different ways. And I think it all underpins everything we've talked about for the last 7 weeks. It's about creating a reason to visit, an experience, a personal connection, all of those things. You know, pop-ups work, and they work locally or internationally or globally. All of those things, pop-ups work, from small scale activations, whether it's a pop-up in your local high street to a pop-up in your a shopping centre in China, because it's tapping in to a kind of demographic or a need at a certain moment. And it's that piece about that's part of the high street's job. And we haven't even talked about things like click and collect. You know, click and collect has taken on a massive significance, especially in the UK, or in England, for the last however many weeks, because click and collect has allowed us to, or allowed local retailers to revise their strategies so that you can continue to purchase locally. And that's another huge part of the future of the high street, I think, in terms of the connection with online shopping, offline shopping. It's that, again, it goes back to that seamless operation. And whether I talk about John's mum's shop, and John, that she does a click and collect service now through a wall shop, and it's that whole piece that you don't have to be a multinational now to offer a giant range of services to your consumer. It's about tapping into what your customer needs and focusing on your consumer. And it goes back to talking about thinking through your consumer's eyes, maintaining a dialogue with your consumer, and on a sort of 360 level. And it's that piece around, I think, and I sort of talk about, I don't know if anyone's ever read any Matthew Said books, but it's that diversity of people thinking and ideas can help solve complex problems. So it's about chucking so many things or different ideas into the mix that actually they all kind of worked. That it kind of fixes the bigger problems. So there's so much to do, I think, with retail in general. It's all exciting stuff. There needs to be a big work between landlords and retailers and brands on things like leases and flexible leases and different, I know lots of people working through that, how they pay rental on turnover rather than rates and things like that. So there's a huge shift, I think, that physical retail needs to do in terms of that bit, to encourage people to try stuff, to focus more in that emotive piece and the experience piece over just trying to sell as much stuff as you possibly can to drive the commercials, and try stuff at different times. You know, you might not want to trade on a Wednesday morning because your community or your customer's not there on a Wednesday morning. You know, they might be there on a Thursday evening or a Sunday afternoon. That's the future of the high street, is we can 24-hour shop online, and shopping centres are open or will be open. I think, you know, back 10 till 10, the high street offers something different. You know, the fact that you can walk out your door, be within 20 minutes of, you know, that's the dream of somewhere that does something for you, your benefit, that you enjoy doing, whether it's a gaming night, whether it's an art exhibition, whether it's a launch of a product, you know, something community focused. That's what is exciting about localized retail. And it's less of just standardized shopping, because that doesn't create that reason to visit. It doesn't create the excitement. It doesn't make you want to go there. It doesn't work, and we know that, we see that, and that's a fantastic opportunity and challenge for anyone who works in retail, whether you're a designer or a creative or operative sort of person within the sort of store formats, working on strategies. I'm sort of love this whole move away from this sort of 20th century thinking that you open a shop and you just open the doors and people will come. It's now, it kind of empowers you as a thinker and as a creative person, and all of us as sort of visuals and all of that thing, to create those reasons to visit. And yeah, we go back on it every week, but why would I want to go there? I don't have to use examples, but certain shops, you kind of walk in there and go, why would I want to, why am I here? Why would I want to go here? You go there for sometimes just to tick off a purpose, a reason, but it's not somewhere you're inspired to go. And ultimately, it's now creating those places of discovery and emotive, playful places that we all need. And I know we need them to serve a purpose. I think if anyone's seen Cardiff at the weekend, I saw pictures of Cardiff. Everyone was desperately gone shopping. Belfast, I think it was, because they're now going into lockdown again for retail. So not Cardiff, Belfast, and everyone was kind of gone out shopping. I know you kind of need to do it out there, but it also shows that physical shopping, there's something that physically retail shopping offers that online doesn't. And I talk about it. No one loves Amazon. Obviously I love Nike, that's why I always talk about it. But no one loves Amazon. You wouldn't admit to loving Amazon. Amazon serves a purpose. It ticks a box. You order it tomorrow. If you need a light bulb, tomorrow I'll get a light bulb. But I don't love that. I don't love that experience. But I do love other experiences, and I think that's ultimately what the future of the high street is. But the future of retail in general is in creating those experiences that people really love and connect with. So, yes, thank you very much what's it called? I don't know what the word is. Sup up my 45 minutes of ramblings again on a Monday. 40 minutes of ramblings on a Monday. It's good to talk, as they say. But I feel like I come on here every Monday, and I say this at the end of every Monday, and just ramble on about retail and my thoughts on retail and your thoughts on retail. It's great to get everyone's points of view and comments, and comments after the talks, and thoughts on what we should talk about in the future and all those kind of things. So I think this is week number 7. I would be back. I'll come back next Monday, unless I get a load of boos and hisses, which you can't do because I can't actually hear or see any of you. But in case, it's good for me. It's good for me to set me up on the week. For us at Wild to talk about kind of what our brains are ticking over, and we have a long chat afterwards about everything here and how we're going to sort of reignite retail 2021, and that's ultimately what I'm excited about, what I'm passionate about, and all of those things. So I don't know next week's topic. Maybe we just freestyle it. As you can tell, I totally freestyle it every week anyway. It's kind of a piece of my brain, and totally informal and open to anyone's thoughts and views about how we continue this every week. So as always, I just finished this with a massive ramble. I'll finish now, and I will see you all next